I think we're ready to roll finally. We're 23 after by my clock, so we got to move through. We're going to skip introduction of guests and visitors, things like that, but I would like to start out. Tony Washington, could you please come on down? And Tony's going to deliver a reflection, and as you might recall, Tony is a brand new Rotarian, and he presented to us, what, 2 months ago? Something like that. And then Walt Churchill's going to lead the pledge.
Thank you, everybody. This quote I came across is something that I've kind of gone back to several times in my life, and it's just a good reminder of when you're facing challenges. It's a quote by Hazrat Khan, and it goes, "I asked for strength, and God gave me difficulties to make me strong. I asked for wisdom, and God gave me problems to learn to solve. I asked for prosperity, and God gave me a brain and brawn to work. I asked for courage, and God gave me dangers to overcome. I asked for love, and God gave me people to help. I asked for favors, and God gave me opportunities. I received nothing I wanted. I received everything I needed." That's it.
Thank you. Walter?
First, I'd like to say happy birthday to everybody. I've had so many people appreciate wishing me a happy birthday that I think it's only right that I come back to you. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Walt. And Walt, happy birthday again.
Yeah, thank you.
92? 93.
Yeah, my wife will be 93 on the 27th of April.
Last question, Walt. How many years of perfect attendance?
I don't know, somebody said 53, somebody, who knows? Well, that was a half. 58.
Okay, I'd also like to thank our monthly sponsor, 2Scale, and Sharon Skilleter. And like I said, we're going to skip introduction of guests and visitors, just in the interest of time. And I think we're going to go right to some of my remarks. Don't forget about the district car raffle. Sign up for So Hope at St. John's on April 9th. And the Rotary After Hours craft beer tasting at Lord's College on April 28th. And now I would like Chuck Stocking to please come up and introduce our speaker, Chet Trail. Should be a very interesting program.
Thank you.
Remember about the question.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I was just reminded about questions, so there are going to be either no questions or very limited, and don't pontificate if you stand up, so okay. Not that anybody would. Well, it's my privilege to introduce Chet Trail as our speaker today. His planned introducer was Kurt Church, but he had to be out of town, so he asked me to pinch hit. I'm probably going to use a lot of bad puns here, but I'm so grateful to have this privilege. I've gotten to know a little bit more about Chet, and he's an amazing person with a really big heart, and I think his journey through life is a culmination that we're going to become acquainted with. For purposes of this introduction, I thought I would resort to the image of baseball to guide the elements in the allegory of the trip to the plate to understand the man and his mission. Everyone could read the spoke, so I won't repeat that information. His beginnings were in a small town in Missouri, Doreen, Missouri. I went to look for it on the internet, and I could not find Doreen, Missouri. He informed me that there was a flood and it doesn't exist anymore. I thought maybe when he left town, he just took it with him. But so there's a really beautiful connection with Chet and this club, Toledo and Libbey High School. and a remarkable career that he had there as an athlete, awesome athlete. I wish I could roll a clock back and watch him play basketball and all that. I was a mentor for one of the Libbey, during the Strive program. Our club has had a long history with Libbey High School before they tore it down. I hope we weren't responsible for having it torn down, but anyway, my mentee was on the basketball team for Libbey, and I went to every game. It was awesome to watch those kids, and they had moves just like the ones you're seeing in the NCAA. They're really spectacular. So I can imagine, Chet, you playing baseball or playing basketball there. A double threat for the school in basketball and in baseball. But he went to the Yankees, so he graduated, went to Libbey. That's his first base. Second base was the privilege of working with the Yankee system. And we could all ask a ton of questions. Hopefully he'll answer some of those. But I came from Chicago, and we hated the Yankees, so I'm so sorry. But I'm opening my thought a little bit, But I was thinking about Minnie Minoso and Louis Aparicio and Nellie Fox and even Ernie Banks at the Cubs. But anyway, apologies for my support for Chicago, but we're grateful for your baseball experience. In business and educational experience, he was been involved in healthcare with Blue Cross Blue Shield, Savage and Associates, and then working with kids all the way. So again, a real uniting piece with this club. And that takes him also, I suspect, to his love for children and the love for the community, his work as pastor at Grace Temple. So he's a really remarkable man, and he has a vision and a vision that he wants to share with us, and I really would like all of us to welcome Chet Trail to the rostrum today.
Thank you, Chuck. I am a fellow Rotarian in the sense that I belong to the Rotary in which my wife and I live in Sylvania, Ohio. And I will introduce my wife of 58 years. Donna, if you would stand, please. I noticed behind me when I had my picture there, I took that picture when I was 20 years of age, and I'm very proud of that picture and the one that I took in my home uniform when I had the good fortune of being on the 1964 World Series roster with the New York Yankees after 1 year of playing professional baseball. And they took me up to that roster because expansion teams were coming along, and they thought I had a future that they thought was well worth protecting. So that's why I was on the World Series roster. I'm the only player to date in the history of baseball that was on the World Series roster, but was at Bowling Green finishing my education. So, and that's another story. When I talked to Kurt and a couple other gentlemen, I want to thank all of those that are responsible for my being here. I think it was Walter that asked me, well, what title are you going to use? What you going to say? I just said, well, put life purposes. And I saw that up there. And so I got to make sure I fulfill the mission and explain what I mean by fulfilling one's purpose. Coming out of high school in Bowling Green, I, now being a minister, and I've been that, I had 2 churches, one in Fremont, and I still have the one here in Toledo, Ohio. I never thought I'd be in that spot, but I was. My life ambition growing up as a kid in a family of 10 was to be a professional baseball player. Although I had good success, I think, with basketball. But in 1963, upon graduating. And the reason I chose baseball over basketball, I didn't think I was big enough to have a career in basketball, so I chose baseball. And from signing in 1963 with the Yankees and attending spring training for the first time, upon graduating from Libbey in 1962, I will tell you, the first trophy that I got as an all-state basketball player was from the Rotarians. So the Rotarians are kind of in my heart. It was the only one about that high, and I kept that trophy throughout the years. And back then, I was already in Bowling Green attending classes. And back then, when you signed professional in one sport, you could not remain an amateur in the other. So Bowling Green literally kicked me out, but let me attend classes there, and the Yankees paid for my education. When I talk about purpose, I now understand and know. Purpose is basically, in my opinion, the reason for the existence of a person or a thing. And if you never learn what your purpose is, abuse will follow. Like, I really don't know the purpose of an ant or something of that nature. So if I'm not careful, what I'll do is kill it. I'll step on it because I don't know the purpose. But once you start to learn purpose of life, and at my age, you're looking at one person that absolutely knows the why. That the two greatest days in my life was when I was born, and now that I know the why. The why now knowing is what gets me up in the morning, still at 78 years of age, you're all supposed to say, oh, you don't look it. Doing what I'm doing, and that is working with children in Sylvania schools as a director of diversity, a job that I basically created in Sylvania. When my wife and I, upon marrying, moved to Sylvania, the second high school, Southview, was not built. And there were 4 black kids when the high school was built, and 2 of them were my daughters. So I saw how Sylvania was then and how it has evolved to the place that it is now. It is becoming more diverse than ever before, at a slow pace, but diverse. People from Central City and etc., when they get in a certain position and they want upward mobility and they want to expose their children as well as themselves to something different, some might say better, West is about the only place they can go. So Sylvania has seen an influx of Hispanics, of Asian, always had a nice number of Jewish living in Sylvania. Is still predominantly in the high school, predominantly white, but things are changing and continue to change. When I went to the superintendent, because I coached girls varsity basketball as well as track for 10 years, I didn't have one non-white on my basketball team. My girls wouldn't play for me. They felt they got enough of me at home, so they would run track. And so I went to the superintendent and told them, because I was getting called in concerning racial conflicts with the changing Sylvania. The kids trying to adjust, not only kids coming in, but the kids that are present there now. So things were changing. So when it comes to purpose, I think a key is what you're exposed to. In 1963, I was exposed to something that I never was exposed to before. I had to get on an airplane. From a family of 10, we didn't have or go on vacations. So for me to get on an airplane, for me, and I'm going to date myself, to have Bob Feller, who was an insurance salesman out of Cleveland, not only a Hall of Famer, come to my house. My dad probably didn't stop smiling from the time that man hit the front porch till he left. Bob Feller. And the reason he was there was, being an insurance man, I had signed a bonus to sign with the Yankees. And I tell the story, it was $43,000. Now, in 1962, to sign for $43,000, I thought I was on top of the world. I mean, that's a lot of money for me, who were having trouble rubbing two nickels together. And here now, I'm in New York. They kind of ambushed me in the sense that the draft was not like it is today. The scout who had saw me play in high school comes to my house and he wants to sign me. But one of the criteria of signing me would be I had to go to New York and they had to work me out for 4 days. And so I'm in Yankee Stadium. Yankee Stadium. I mean, I said no to Cleveland, Detroit, but the Yankees, Mickey Mantle, Elston Howard, Whitey Ford, I'm going to New York. I never had a suit, but the scout bought me one. And there I am in New York. And again, for 3 days, they wanted to see how I really hit a ball, my speed, my arm, and all that. I learned later the real reason, or at least an important reason, was they needed to find out who they were about to offer a contract to, because the Yankees were one of the last teams to yield to integration. They were a holdout. And since I was a shortstop, they wanted to make sure they knew everything about me. And quite honestly, they told me some things they found out about me because they had searched me from the being born to being in that stadium. Well, I signed. And once I signed, that next year is when I went to spring training and joined the Yankees. I didn't know now at that time, being 20 years of age, my purpose is being formed. I am going to learn some life lessons that Bowling Green or any other college could never have taught me. My dad had that talk with me that black dads have with their sons. And the thing that he kept impressing upon me said, now, you won't be able to go many places. It's the South. And be careful of officers, policemen. But my eyes were so big, my enthusiasm so high, I almost dismissed that. And I'll never forget because it was the February 10th that we were supposed to report. I couldn't get a flight out of Toledo, so I went February 9th. And I got into Fort Lauderdale, checked in to the Yankee Clipper, and what the Yankee Clipper did, which was the hotel across the street, is where the ball players stayed. When I get there, I'm the only one. The rest of the guys wouldn't come until the next day. And the gentleman tells me who my roommate is, and if you ever heard of Roy White was my roommate, and nobody but me. And he said, now, when you get ready to eat, across the street is the Yankee Clipper. And that's where all the players will be eating. So I get checked in, and that evening, I go across the street to the Yankee Clipper. And this big, beautiful hotel, I walk in. And when I walked in, a gentleman, before he could get to me, when I walked in, everybody that was in that hotel dining stopped and looked at me. And I thought, whoa, hey, I'm Chet Trail, the rookie. Look at the attention that I'm getting. I mean, I was on cloud nine. He said, and he came over to me, and he said, you're with the Yankees, aren't you? I said, yes, my name is Chet Trail. He said, Chet, glad to have you. But the Yankees rent the whole hotel for spring training, for the days of spring training. And no other clients or patrons eat for the next month and a half that you will be here. He said, but Chet, it starts tomorrow. You'll have to go down in the kitchen and eat. You can get anything that you want, but you have to eat it downstairs in the kitchen. So that was my first experience that something hit me right in the face. I go downstairs in the kitchen, and I tell you, I never grew up, when I was growing up, I never had a T-bone by itself where my brothers or sisters weren't trying to get some of it. But down there, he fixed that steak. I'll never forget him talking to me. I'm feeling reality start to set in. As I moved forward, I played my first year in Fort Lauderdale, only black on the team. The next year, when I went onto the roster, I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina. The Civil Rights Bill has been passed. Only black on the Greensboro Yankees. And when finally that bill passed, I'm going to go downtown, which I never was afforded the opportunity before, and eat in a restaurant of my choosing. And there I was. I walked towards the restaurant. There was a demonstration that was going on. The college students from A&T were protesting, or they were going to integrate anywhere they wanted to. But likewise, the Klan and the white supremacists were demonstrating also. And there I am. I'm watching all of this, and I'm going into this restaurant. Before I could get inside, two men come over. And I've forgotten the one, but I'll never forget the shorter gentleman. And saying gentleman is really stretching it. He walks over to me, And in walking over to me, I then saw his gun. I then saw the nightstick of the other gentleman that's with him. And he says something to me that I'll go into eternity remembering. He puts his hand on his gun and he says, "Here is," and he uses the N-word, "that we can kill." I was traumatized. In fact, I didn't know what to do. So I tried to get an officer who was trying to direct traffic attention. I remember what my dad said about police officers. So I yelled out. And when I yelled out to get his attention, he turns, he looks at me, realizes what's going on, and turns around. Fortunately, I was able to get to my car, get back to where I was staying. Couldn't stay in a hotel, even in Greensboro. I'm in people's home. I called my dad and said, "That's it. I'm coming home. He said, "No, you are not. You are a trail." I had 5 other brothers and sisters. "You're not coming home." Thank God. I stuck that out. As I moved through my 7 years of professional baseball, again, 5 with the Yankees, 2 were with Baltimore Orioles, and that's when both teams were winning the World Series and etc. In those 7 years, I got to know people in a depth that, again, school couldn't teach me. Some of the guys that I got to know, we had conversations. And I, like the Bible will teach, in all you're getting, get an understanding, knowing this: wisdom is the key. Get knowledge, get understanding, and use wisdom. I listened, and some of the things that they said to me, I didn't agree with, but I got to get, or have gotten, an understanding of the why they think the way they think. Because they were taught that. Just like when I'm standing up before you, all kind of thoughts can go through your mind concerning a black person. When I'm at school, I kid the kids, because I have to be in the 3rd grade, 4th grade. I'm doing workshops and all of that. And I tell the kids when I get up, based upon what you have been taught, what you have been exposed to, when I stood up before you, certain thoughts came through your mind. And I would walk over to one of the little girls and said, her name was Haley. I'll never forget her. Because the same way I never forgot the guy who wanted to shoot me, I can see his face today. I never forgot this little Haley. This little blue-eyed Haley, 3rd grader, I mean, she would look at me in such a way, and I engage the kids. I don't do romper room. I take where I feel they can understand, and I want to leave something with them when I walk out. Well, little Haley was just watching me and watching me. I even walked away toward the back of the room, and there was those eyes. I thought I had something on my pants or something on my face, because little Haley was doing something, then she was meeting a need that all of us have, whether we recognize that or not. She accepted me. She accepted me from the moment that I had when I stood before them. Because again, my greatest fear and what I got hurt the most was being rejected. Being rejected by a man that wanted to kill me because of this, but didn't know one thing about me. Haley, his rejection was replaced by Haley's acceptance. Because when it comes to children, they are the best detectors of phoniness. They know when someone is speaking from the heart towards them. Just like what you're picking up from me. You know my passion, and I've only been up here 5 minutes because I can't hide it. When it comes to purpose, I'm now understanding why the baseball. Why those experiences? Because I'm getting set up for the ultimate. When I went out of baseball, got out of baseball, I went to Blue Cross and Blue Shield. First black salesman for Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Northwest Ohio. And I had some pushback calling on corporate people and all that kind of thing. In 1980, I left there and I go to Savage and Associates. Now I'm going to tell you, with my experiences, I've met a lot of people that impressed me. But there's been a handful of men and one woman that impacted my life. The first, when joining the Yankees, yes, there was Mano, Mears, Bear, Howard, all of them. But we were playing a spring training exhibition game with the Braves. And when the bus came to pick up both teams, I'm with Elston Howard. And if you all know, he was a great catcher. But more important, as we're standing outside the bus, here comes my hero, Hank Aaron. And I'm looking, almost in disbelief, starstruck. Elston Howard said he and Hank were friends. So he says, Hank, come here. He said, I got someone I want you to meet. Looking around. Well, he said, Hank, this is Chet Trail. I'm blown away. Wait a minute. It should be Chet Trail. Meet Hank Aaron. But Elston Howard. Hank, this is Chet Trail. Hank Aaron extends his hand and said, Chet, nice to meet you. Where you from? Bob, I don't know if I ever told a man where I was from. I'm still so enamored with the idea. Sitting on the bus, I know because he caught me more than once looking at him, I know he wanted to say, what? He impacted me. He impacted me when I watched him never take a kid pencil away and not sign. So every time a kid asked me to sign something, I signed it. Again, I met great men on the Yankees. As I told you, it's 1980. And I'm with Savage and Associates. And I did not know Bob was going to be here. God knows I'm telling the truth. I met two men who impacted my life. I wasn't that good a salesman, even though I was with them for 20 years. I knew that's not what I was going to be ultimately doing, but I'm there for a purpose. And those two men taught me some life lessons, and here is one that is still with me today. I didn't really believe that you could be open-minded and receive people as people, regardless of how they look. But those two men, from their heart, I genuinely believe, had no hang-ups when it came to color, and especially me. I'm starting now to put this picture together. I learned what I learned. And when I went to another man that impacted my life, the superintendent of Sylvania School, and after things started changing, I said, Brad, we're going to have to do something. Because all of you know, what gets here first has a way of getting stuck. Because you're endeared to who taught it. How could my dad be wrong about policemen? My uncles taught it to me. How could somebody, my pastor or whomever it might be, because that got here first, but I came across the truth. And the truth is what changed my life. And I don't know if it's proper or improper, but it was God coming into my life, changing my heart, that I now found out what the truth is. And when the truth comes, all of you experience the truth sooner or later. But it's up to you what you do with that truth. And that truth freed me here. And when it opened up my mind, it opened up my heart. I don't buy that everybody is prejudiced and have this or that. I have preferences. I choose the Yankees over anybody, but not at the expense of you Tiger fans. It's preference. It's preference. It happened, and when that happened to me, because you see, educators, I couldn't be in the classroom every day. That's a calling that I wouldn't want. And if you think it's easy, you try teaching for an hour to third graders with teachers and educators trying to keep them interested at the same time. That's tough. But an educator is more than one that can open up a book. And I educate every day that I'm working, if you call it working. Because if you find out what you should be doing, you'll never work another day in your life, because you're working. And when it comes to education, the word itself means to lead others out of ignorance. And that's my purpose. As bad as things are, my purpose is to make an impact on youngsters like it was made by others on me. And as I come to an end of this, we got challenges in Sylvania because we have those preconceived, that's what prejudice is, prejudgment. And when kids get kicked out of school for racial slurs and conflicts, I go to their home. And I don't always get a warm exceptions when I walk into that home. But you see, I know what I know. And no matter how you feel, that can't change me now, because it's in me. It's from the heart. And I want to leave this earth making sure that I left an impact on some children that come into my world. And that's why I teach them, be very careful how you treat others when they enter into your circle, because no one reaches success or the epitome of themselves without the help of others. Hank Aaron, Bob and John Savage, my dad, everybody has a role to play in where you ultimately want to go in life. And so when it comes to purpose again, the reason for existence, mine is to make sure whether it's your grandchild or not, whoever it might be, you might have the hang up. Because I'm going to tell you, to change is difficult. I played baseball, 160 pounds. Don't you tell me change is not uncomfortable. But you have to willing to be disturbed, where your thought processes are challenged. And so I learned a great deal from the people I mentioned because I listened. I think that's why I got 2 of these. I can listen and only 1 of these. But because you're not learning when you're talking. And so my purpose is to fulfill young folks' lives. And I'm grateful that I had this opportunity. And I'll stop with this one. When I was coaching girls basketball, I had 3 rules. And I went by those 5 P's. Proper preparation prevents poor performance, because that team was 0-19 when the AD said, Chet, I want you to take them. I had coached 1 year at Northview, freshman boy. He said, take these girls, they're awful. I saw them play, they were awful. I told the girls this and their parents, in a setting like this, you will learn basketball as I know it. You also will know this, I'll never ever use foul language in talking to them, and I'll never touch them inappropriately. That's what I live by. Now, you all won't believe this, but this is true too. I said, girls, you might get hurt playing basketball, but you can never miss practice or a game because you're sick. And it worked. Now, you don't think that's something, but telling girls they can't get sick and they can't miss practice or a game, I'm sowing seeds of dealing with adversity because I had to do it. And here's the beauty of the Klansman and now. And you're coming across the truth. I'm not scarred. I am whole here. There was one girl, I carried 15 girls. Her name was Teresa. She was 14th on the squad. And oh, by the way, that next year we were co-champs. Now, I didn't get Bobby Knight nervous, but we improved. And Teresa was his name. She wrote me a letter a few years back. And when she wrote the letter, she said, Mr. Trail, here in California, I have my own business. Over 250 some odd employees. I have done real well. I'm writing this letter to let you know some of the things that you taught me, us, some of those same principles I used in business. And I want to thank you. That's it. But when she said how financially successful she was, I went and got the envelope and said, well, where's the check? Where's the royalty on this? But then it dawned on me, it's in my hand. Purpose being fulfilled. My time is up. If I have a few minutes, I'll try to field any questions that's for the good of the order.
Since we're over, I'm going to skip some questions, but I'm hoping that Mr. Trail and his wife Donna will hang around for a few minutes and answer some privately. Sorry about that, we got a late start. Thank you so much for speaking. As a token of our appreciation, I would like you to have this book, Historical Tales of Toledo. It's by past President Clip Mock, and I think you may learn a few things about Toledo,
well,
even though you're a lifelong Toledoan. And also, we'd like to make a donation to the Polio Plus program in your name.
Oh, thank you so
So,
much.
you mind sticking around a few?
That's fine.
That'd be great. So he'll be here. I'm going to finish this up real quick. Next week, we have Yoram Ettinger, and he's going to be discussing the Iranian threat, negotiation, or confrontation. So that should be interesting and probably controversial. We will be downstairs again in the glass pavilion room, and we'll probably, I think we got that booked for the next month or so. And it'll go a little quicker. We're making some adjustments to the food line down there, and I promise we won't get started quite so late. Program committee is going to meet in about 2 weeks, I think in 2 weeks, on the 11th. And we'd like your ideas. We're booked up through the first week of May, but we need ideas for the rest of this Rotary year. So if you'd get a hold of Jackie or me or Bob Tucker or Chuck Mann, if you got some program ideas, because you're going to have to get those in before that. And that is all I got today. Thanks for coming. Hope you enjoyed the venue. We're adjourned.